Alrighty, and welcome back to the Mother-Daughter Disney podcast. My name is Amanda, and this is a very special episode because for the first episode ever, which episode number are we on right now, actually? For the first episode, 162 episodes Mom and I have done, and this is the first episode where my dad is actually here with me. So do you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone.
So as you can tell, it's going to be a fun episode, and that's because my mom is not a Star Wars fan. So she does not like Star Wars. She's never liked Star Wars. So my dad and I actually just saw The Mandalorian and Grogu, the new Star Wars movie.
It was awesome.
Yeah, so we're just going to sit here and chat about it. So I guess first, we can give our non-spoiler review. So Dad, would you recommend people to see the movie?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're a Star Wars fan, you have to see it.
Yeah, I feel like even if you aren't that big of a Star Wars fan, I feel like it's still a really fun movie to see in a general sense. It has a lot of action. I would say if you're into like action movies, it's a very action-packed movie, very sci-fi action movie. And I would say you don't necessarily need to see the TV shows or any other previous Star Wars movies or anything like that to see the movie. Like it's pretty standalone, I would say. Now, if you have seen things previously, obviously that's going to add a lot to your viewing experience, but I would say you don't necessarily have to. So let's get into some quick background real quick before we get into some of the plot. So first, The Mandalorian and Grogu is directed by Jon Favreau, who co-wrote the movie with Dave Filoni and Noah Clore. So the movie is produced by Lucasfilm and of course distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures, and it again is part of that overall Star Wars franchise. So of course our starring characters is Pedro Pascal as Din Djarin, who is the main Mandalorian, as well as Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder, who play the Mandalorian like in the full suit, so to speak. So it's like the three of them, I would say, overall make up the entire character of the Mandalorian. And then it says here as well that Favreau and Filoni wrote a fourth season of The Mandalorian in February of 2023, but the production was delayed by the 2023 Hollywood labor disputes. So during this time, Lucasfilm reevaluated their overall plans for the Star Wars franchise and decided to prioritize a Mandalorian film over the fourth season. So then that was when in January 2024, the movie was announced with Favreau directing the movie and then again co-writing it with Filoni and Clore. And again, most of the characters reprising their roles as well. So filming began in August 2024 and was completed by that December. So honestly, by the time it came out to when it filmed, it was a pretty short post-production time. And they also said that, again, there was other further casting and stuff like that was revealed, over that course of time. All right, so the Mandalorian and Grogu premiered on May 14th, 2026 in the Chinese Theater in Los Angeles. And again, it has come out on May 22nd to 2026. For the most part, the critics have been divided on the film because some people said they thought that the overall plot was a little bit weak, but they all have, there was always praise, of course, for Pascal's performance, Grogu's performance, the score, the overall actors. But again, some people didn't always like all the visual effects either in the initial critics review of it. So all right, so the overall premise of the movie is following the fall of the Galactic Empire during a period where remaining Imperial warlords threaten the galaxy, the New Republic enlists Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, and his apprentice Grogu to rescue Rada the Hutt in exchange for information from the Hutt clan on a New Republic target. All right, so that is where we set off. So let's get into the movie itself. So from my dad's point of view, we're just going to go through the plot lightly and then just make comments on what we thought of the plot and what we thought of the scenes.
Okay.
All right, so when the movie opens, what I thought was interesting that the movie opened with this initial scene of the Mandalorian and Grogu basically hunting down some Imperial warlords. That was really obvious that one was in charge and then the other like six of them were kind of just going along with it because they had no choice. I don't know what planet they were on, but it was cold, so it had a very like that Hoth vibe. They're all wearing jackets. It's funny because they had windows, but the windows were open, so you could see the snow coming in. I'm like, why don't they just close off those windows? And then they wouldn't
Special effects.
I was gonna say they wouldn't be freezing in this room altogether, like shivering. But anyway, so Mandalorian, he ends up killing that warlord though. So when he gets back to the New Republic, that's when Sigourney Weaver, that's her character. So then her character says, it's like, you can't be killing everyone because we need information from these people. She was like, that is part of the point of what we need you for. She gives him, so she says to the next mission that she wants him to go on is that he needs to get intel from the Hutt twins. So this is from, I guess, one of the previous TV shows. I will say I've seen all the shows, seen all the movies, but I wouldn't necessarily say I have the memory to recall exactly every single character that has ever been in the Star Wars universe. But yeah, before the Hutt twins, I guess when Jabba the Hutt, I guess in which one it was, A New Hope, that's when Jabba is killed in A New Hope, right? Yeah, so I would say in A New Hope, that's when Jabba is killed. So then the Hutt Empire, so to speak, then we're assuming the Hutt twins have to be his younger siblings. siblings according to family lineage. They don't necessarily say who it is because then the Mandalorian, he's tasked with going to the Hutt twins with, again, to find this intel on more about the Galactic Empire in hiding for the most part. So of course he is with Grogu, and then they give him a new Razor Crest ship as a prepayment for this. Now, of course, in theory, he would need the Razor Crest because if he's going to get Rada, because that's what they want is Rada, the heir from Jabba, he wouldn't have fit in the other ship. So of course they had to find a way where he would fit in the ship, which I think is really funny. But also I thought it was really funny that they're like, all right, we just got to get him back in the ship. So we're just going to say, they literally say they found the Razor Crest. They called it a vintage ship, which I thought was kind of funny. They found the vintage ship on, I guess, like something to do with the Galactic Empire. So they found it and they fully restored it for the most part. So that is how Mandalorian and Grogu are going to get into their new ship. And they also have Zeb with them as well too. So Zeb is a character from the Rebels cartoon series. Rebels, again, takes place before the overall, again, it's like between the prequels and the original trilogies where the Rebels takes place, and Zeb was a main character on that TV show. So if you've seen Rebels, it's very exciting to see Zeb. If you've never seen Rebels, you will have no idea who this character is. But from being honest, he's not that crazy big of a role in it. So it's more of exciting for those who've seen the TV show prior, but not necessarily you have to see it to know who his character is. All to know is that basically he's a really good pilot and he's on the New Republic side is all to say there. So
he was a good compliment to the Mandalorian.
Yeah, he was. I thought he was fun. And it was fun seeing him also in live action because I've only seen him in Rebels, of course. So it's fun to finally see him, in the live action scene of there. Initially, Mandalorian doesn't want to, I'm just going to call him the Mandalorian rather than Djarin or Din Djarin or anything. So originally Mando, he doesn't necessarily want to accept the assignment because he doesn't want to get involved, with the Hutts and all those bounty hunters and the underground of the worlds and everything. But anyway, he kind of has to. So he has no choice. So he takes the ship, he goes in the assignment. The Hutt twins tell him that they want him to rescue, again, Rada the Hutts from where he's being captured by Janu. So again, like a crime syndicate, Lord Janu has Rada the Hutt. Now, if you've watched Clone Wars, that goes all the way back to Clone Wars, where Rada, when he was a little baby, which is really funny if you think about it, because the Hutt twins literally showed the photo from like Clone Wars of like, we haven't seen Rada since he was like a baby, basically. So when you see the photo, it's like, yeah, that's like basically from Clone Wars. And I'll say I'm blanking on some of the details of Clone Wars, but there was a whole plot that happened like the season 1 of Clone Wars with Ahsoka and Anakin, and they were rescuing Rada, and again, the Hutt twins wanted to kill Rada because they wanted to take over the whole, like what Jabba had, the whole empire, his whole, crime empire, so to speak. Anyway, though, we're back to Rada, which I think is fun that they brought back a character like that because it's like not necessarily niche, but I don't know, I just thought it was like fun to pull back from the old times, so to speak. Gotta keep things going. Also, it's like when they got into that palace, it was crazy to see how many other like slug-like creatures there were in that palace. I was like, how many of these people are there? And he finds Rada on a moon of a planet called Shikari. So he gets there, and Rada is actually doing pretty fine for himself. So he is owned by Janu. He is technically a prisoner in that sense, but he's forced to fight in these like gladiator style fighting pits. And he's like the star of the show though. Like he's the best fighter they have. Everyone loves him. Everyone's going crazy for him. And so they end up watching one of his shows, and that's when we were saying that Martin Scorsese is in this movie. He voices this character who owns this little like hut making food, and he kind of, again, the Mando kind of gets information from him just in general about planet and what they're doing and stuff. So all right, so then so Rada is saying that he wants to step out of his father's shadow because he says for the most part anyone who ever sees him only ever associates him with Jabba, and they're like, no, Jabba always led in fear, whereas Rada doesn't want to do that. So Rada is like, no, I'm trying to make a name for myself here. People love me. I'm like a great fighter and stuff like that. And he's like the fan favorite, so everyone loves fighting him.
And Rada expected to be freed after he wins the last fight. So he said, I'm going to be free. Life's going to be great. I'm going to do what I want. Yeah, and he's like, I don't want to go back to the twins, back to that, that palace, because they're horrible. They treated him really poorly when he was a kid. They're abusive. So yeah, he says like, I have one last fight for Janu, and then once I'm done, then I'm a free agent. I can do and go wherever I want. So Mando is like, all right. So then he goes to Janu, and then we have a whole little scene of him trying to get to Janu, like a little fighting scene, which is kind of fun. And when he finally gets to Janu tells him that, I forget exactly the word that they called it, but it was a type of fight where basically they would just keep throwing fighters into the ring against Rada until Rada died. So it's like no matter what, like that was going to be his literal last fight because Janu just wanted to kill him off, and he was never going
going to let him free, which is pretty obvious if you think about it. I feel like any crime syndicate would have never let you go free. So anyway, though, but yeah, there was a specific word that they used, and he realized, they realized it. But of course, Mando is like, no, I need to still rescue, I say in quotes, rescue him to bring him back to the twins, his aunt and uncle who really want him back. And so he tries to free him, but then Rada, he's like, no, I'm not going back to the twins. You're wrong. Like, Johnu's not going to kill me, just being naive, so that he calls for the guards and Mando gets knocked out. And then Grogu also gets captured too at that point as well. So when he comes to, he's forced to fight Rada in the ring itself. And then Grogu's in this little cage, which is really sad. He's in this like little cage by Johnu and like his like top dog and everything. He has this like parrot, that's attacking him in the cage and everything. But anyway, though, so Mando wins. Honestly, pretty shocking that he won if you think about it. There is one point where Rada falls on his back on top of him, and I'm like, how did he not like break a leg? Like, I get he's wearing full body armor and like he has the helmet on and stuff that wouldn't crush him, but I don't know, his whole body's not in, like, he's not like a stormtrooper, like he's not like encased in armor. So I don't know, he survives being crushed by Rada. So anyway, though, but he technically he sort of defeats him twice when they're fighting, though. Like, he has him at like knife point, so to speak, twice.
But they agreed that they have to partner to get through this onslaught of all these other
because once they realize that Mando won, he wants to let Rada be free. That's when Johnu is like, well, that's not going to happen. So again, all those creatures that he's collected over the years, he opens the door. So now, Rada and Mando have to fight their way out of it. And the way they do that is that Rada, there's lots of little creatures in here, lots of fun creatures. If you like the creatures of the Star Wars universe, the creatures are here, that's for sure. It's very reminiscent of the scene in the Clone Wars, the movie The Clone Wars, where again, like Obi-Wan, Padme, and Anakin are like tied up on those poles and they let loose those three creatures to attack them. Very reminiscent of that, I would say. So if you love that scene, this is kind of the same thing with like those creatures attacking them. But at one point, Rada takes this little creature that has like electricity in its mouth and he throws it on, they sort of have these like red beams that like the laser beams so that they're contained in the little arena. So he throws it on those laser beams and it breaks. So now all the creatures are just free and they can just get loose. And that's how they escape for the most part. So, which I mean, like, low-key, that wasn't a very strong like structure to keep the creatures in. I'm like, I feel like they should have thought that through, that was not a very secure, I would say, fighting arena overall. But anyway, though, so Grogu and Mando, they pursue Rada and they finally escape, with him, with Zeb as well too. So Zeb is the one to get him back on the Razor Crest. So as they're leaving and he's going to take Rada back to the twins, Rada tells him, what is your goal? So Mando is like, I'm tasked by the New Republic to get intel from the twins, and the twins will only tell me that intel if I bring you to them. Or again, they're looking for a very specific like Imperial warlord, Empire Imperial warlord. And Rada is like, well, that is Johnu. He was like, you're going to return me to them and they're just going to tell you that it's Johnu. And honestly, Johnu just escaped because we just had that whole problem in the fighting ring. So it's like, in any way, he's like, he's probably getting away right now. And he says he knows it's Johnu because he says after one of his fights way back when, Johnu had brought him to this palace, this like little palace on a cliff, like his vacation home, so to speak, to celebrate the fight. And all the stormtroopers are there. So he's like, yeah, it's pretty clear he's still from the Galactic Empire. So, all right. So then, Mando has to decide, is he going to trust Rada or is he going to trust the intel from the New Republic? Obviously, he trusts Rada. The plot must move on at some point or another. But you can also tell too, Rada's like, you're a bounty hunter. You can usually tell if someone is lying or someone is not lying or something. So then they go to that little hut. And yeah, sure enough, obviously Rada was telling the truth, as we all know. They get into the hut pretty easily if we're thinking about it, all things considered. It's like, and then getting back out was the tricky part, because then honestly, Johnu doesn't really put up a big fight. I guess he's not really a fighter anymore because he kind of just takes him and is like, all right, let's go. So,
well, all of his stormtroopers
the stormtroopers
defeated,
are trying to get him back. Yeah,
he had nothing to do.
Yeah, so then they get Johnu. So again, they get Johnu in this like speeder, and then the other stormtroopers in the speeders chasing them. Meanwhile, Mando is trying to contact Grogu and Rada, who are still in the Razor Crest, to say, get the ship ready because we're coming in hot type of thing. But Rada's like, I don't fit in the cockpit. So he's like, I can't do anything. And Grogu and neither Grogu or Rada are pilots. So they're like, we don't know how to like just start a ship up. So of course, Grogu's in the cockpit and you get the funny scene of like Grogu just pressing every wrong button and Johnu being like, yeah, I don't think he knows what he's doing in there. It's like, yeah, pretty clear that he doesn't know what he's doing in there because in theory, Grogu is still kind of a child. But anyway, they get back to the Razor Crest, everything ends up being okay overall. And also to say too, they said because of where they were doing all of this mission, the New Republic doesn't have any jurisdiction over like the Outer Rim, so to speak. So that's why they couldn't call for like backup during all this. So anyway, so they bring Johnu back to the New Republic, back to Sigourney Weaver's character, which I don't have her name written down, unfortunately, so sorry, but it's Sigourney Weaver is the actress. So they bring her back to her. She's kind of annoyed at first because she's like, you were supposed to be bringing me back Rada so we could get information on Rada and like from the huts. And he's like, like, this guy is even better than Rada because he actually has information where, again, Rada wasn't with the Galactic Empire at all. So again, it would have been useless to bring Rada back to them anyway. So again, now they have Janu, his full name was Janu Coin. Who knew? So anyway, so then when they go back to a different part of the same planet, you can just see Rada and Grogu just like hanging out on the beach, which I thought was kind of funny. So just rolling around in the beach, having a good time. So then at that point, Mando says he said that, you know, the last mission, it was a lot of work, so to speak. So he says, like, I'm going to take a little break for right now. So he brings Rada and Grogu back to Navarro. So Navarro, of course, is from the TV show, again, like where the main part, I would say, the shows kind of take place in Navarro. And they have a little house. I was like, oh my gosh, look at them. Where did this real estate house come from? Did they have a little home? So, and that other first ship that he had from season 3 of Mandalorian was in that scene as well too. And then they're trying to fix the Razor Crest. So not fix it, because the Razor Crest didn't get damaged or anything, but he wants to make it lighter. Like, he wants to make some improvements to the Razor Crest. So they're there. Rada ends up also leaving from there as well. And he's going to go hide with, you know, some other people. So the ship comes down, takes Rada away. Rada's gone. And Grogu enlists the help of 4 and Zelens to help modify, again, the Razor Crest, again, make it lighter, make it faster, whatever. But then at night, they're attacked in the privacy of their home, which is crazy. You can never have safety in any of these places, I feel like, by the bounty hunter Embo. So Embo is a character also from Clone Wars who's in, I think, throughout all the seasons of Clone Wars for a while. At first, when I saw him, I thought he was Cad Bane because they kind of look similar, for being really honest, like, especially from a distance if you just see the silhouette. But it wasn't Cad Bane, it was Embo. And Embo doesn't really talk much to begin with anyway. But again, Embo, you know, kind of ambushes them at the home, but Grogu and the Anzellans are able to escape anyway, except for one Anzellan, his like Embo's dog-like character and a dog-cat-like character.
More like a wolf.
Yeah, it was like a wolf-cat almost, I would say. Takes one of the Anzellans in his mouth, but he doesn't eat him. He just kind of plays with him, which I thought was kind of funny. Also, this is also in this scene too, where before Rada leaves, Rada had said like, oh yeah, I went through your kitchen. He's holding this little package of like these blue cookies, basically. After he leaves, he gives the cookies to Grogu, and Grogu's eating the cookies. And Mando takes the cookies from him, being like, you can't eat all these cookies before dinner type of thing. So Grogu's just eating the one cookie. But those cookies are now in Galaxy's Edge in Hollywood Studios and in Disneyland as well in Galaxy's Edge. So you can buy those little macaroon cookies.
Blue macaroon.
Yeah, the little blue macaroon cookies in Galaxy's Edge. They're selling them now, which I thought was really fun because I figured it was something from the movie when I saw that got posted the other day, but I wasn't sure because I hadn't seen the movie yet. But yeah, those cookies are in the movie, so that's why they're selling the cookies now. They're called Grogu's cookies in Hollywood Studios. So I hope they keep them because we're not going for a few months, but I hope they keep those Grogu's cookies around because I'd like to try them. But anyway though, so all that to say, the reason why the cookies are important is because when Mando comes to in Embo's ship, he still has the cookies in his pocket, so he's able to use the cookies as a distraction for the wolf dog cat thing, so that way he drops the Anzellan can come to him and kind of hide, and then he still gets electrocuted anyway and gets knocked out. so Embo takes Mando back to the twins because the twins are, you know, they're mad at him because they're saying, he's like, why didn't you do what we asked you to do? Like, you betrayed us, and that's obviously going to be a problem. So then when they're there, they have a whole scene and they end up actually removing his helmet, which is obviously, we all know it's a big deal for Mandalorian to remove his helmet. And they don't even really care, honestly, about the steel of his helmet because they say Mandalorian Beskar steel, of course, is one of the best steels in the Star Wars universe. They don't even care about that. They say it's like, it's more for the shame on his part that they know that he is shamed now that he has been seen by the enemy, so to speak. But then again, Mando makes a point to say, it's like, not unless you die, you know, because everyone else in that room are droids, which in theory, droids do count, but they also don't count, I feel like, at the same time. But anywho, though, the twins matter more, I would say, overall. So anyway, so when he's also in the room with the twins, he sees Rada being tortured anyway. So the Rada's whole escape was for nothing. The twins still got Rada, so what was the point of that? And they are intending to torture Rada for like hundreds of years, is what they say. So anyway, so to punish Mando for, again, breaking that contract with the twins to get Rada back to them, they make him fight a dragon snake. So they drop him, the classic Jabba the Hutt thing, they drop him into the pit below. Honestly, not really a great, I would say, viewpoint from their behalf, because now they're above him looking down. So they only have a bird's eye view on the fight, and most of the fight took place underwater. So I'm like, I feel like you need to like be at tank level to see the whole fight. I don't know, I always thought that too. I thought that too.
But they had multiple creatures, which
they did, yeah.
Which Mando defeated.
Yeah, I don't know
snake.
I don't know what those creatures were. That I don't have a name for them. I've never really seen them before. But yeah, there was this other like snake-like creatures that were fighting him, but they weren't really snake-like because they had arms, because they were holding the little staffs with the little thing on the sides. So no, there were other creatures in the lake that he fought first that he got a staff from to fight the dragon snake. But then the dragon snake was like huge. But anyway, though, so now he's fighting the whole dragon snake. A very intense fight. Honestly, when he first fell into the water and he was sinking, part of me was like, maybe he should take off all that heavy armor and cape that's probably dragging it down in this water. But no, he doesn't. He keeps it all on, and yet, you know, it is what it is. Now at this point, going back to Grogu and the Anzellans, Zellans, they're still on, Navarro, and they're like, all right, it's like, what's our plan? So they get their own little ship and they fly and they follow. I mean, I guess he kind of knows who took them. So they follow him all the way over to where the hut is, where Nal Hutta is. So now they're there as well. They end up trekking through the forest because they're so small. None of the guards really see them, kind of, but they climb, they like scale, because I guess the hut is sort of like a half palace, half tree. It's like a palace tree, so to speak, made out of mud and wood and stuff. So they scale aside, they get in through the pipes, and then, there's a moment where, Mando's kind of getting beat by the dragon snake, and he was cut by the dragon snake as well too. So he has this big gash on his side, and at one point the Hutt's twins say, if the dragon snake doesn't kill you, like the poison from him will kill you anyway, so they're not really too concerned about it. But anyway, though, so Grogu and the Anzellans, they're able to, they blow up this little pipe for the most part, which is funny because when they go to blow it up, Mando is like, you need to leave then, because he's in water, so as soon as the pipe blows up, the water is just going to rush this pipe, which is exactly what happens. And then they slide down the little pipe, like a little water slide, into a bigger pond. And then again, Mando just basically follows him through. At first, I wasn't sure if Mando was going to fit in that pipe because the pipe looked pretty small, but I guess he fit, so I don't know. So anyway, so then at that point, he's still injured at that point, and then when he gets out, the twins realize obviously that he escaped, so they know that it's like, all right, we need to send all of our forces to go find him. Like, they want to make sure Mando actually is fully killed. Obviously, Mando has just enough energy to get them back to the ship that Grogu and the Anzellans took. But when you get to the ship is like a little baby ship, because the Anzellans are like smaller than Grogu is, so they took like a ship for their size to fly. I didn't even know they made ships that small in Star Wars, for being honest. So when he sees the ship, he realizes, he's like, I can't escape with you guys on the ship. So he tells Grogu, leave, and he's like, I'll follow you behind you, even though he has no plan, obviously. Then he kind of runs through the forest. Even though he's being poisoned, he still takes down a bunch of the droids and everything like that until he eventually passes out from the poison. But then out of nowhere, Grogu you realize obviously Grogu is not going to leave and, just leave, Mando by himself there. So he comes back, and then we get like this 10 to 15 minute scene, I feel like, of just Grogu, which I thought was really great. And I saw a lot of praise online for this scene as well too. So Grogu, again, he's able to heal the cut on his side, but Grogu doesn't realize he's being poisoned, and that's why he's still knocked out, because he's trying to wake him up and he's not waking up. But again, it's because he was knocked out from the poison. So then we go like almost 2 full days, because the first night they sleep, he wakes up the next day, and then he starts building this hut, essentially this hut made out of mud. So we've seen these hut before, way back when, I guess so. The
Yoda hut.
Yeah, I was gonna say in Return of the Jedi with Yoda. Yoda had built the same hut, and that was the hut that Yoda lived in, was in this little mud-shaped hut. And so Grogu builds the same little mud-shaped hut, although it's pretty small because it's like for his size. So after he builds the hut, and I saw a lot of people online saying too that it's like, I guess that's just an innate trait that all people of Grogu's and Yoda's species just know how to build these little mud huts, which I thought was really cute. So he builds this hut. He builds it next to Mandalorian, which I think is really funny, because then he has to use the Force to push Mandalorian into the hut. But he didn't really make the hut big enough, so Mando's feet are sticking out of the side, which is very funny. And as he's like trying to shove him into this hut, he does not fit into the hut. So he has to put some like leaves and sticks on top of him, which also, there was a point before he built the hut where he did cover Mando with a bunch of leaves and sticks and, whatever, which is also very reminiscent from the Hunger Games series, when Peeta just like somehow disguised himself on that rock and paints himself on that rock. When I was watching that scene, that's literally what I thought of when Josh Hutcherson says, like, how did Peeta do that in the forest? But again, Grogu does it better, covers him in leaves, and then once he builds the hut, he puts him in the hut, and then again, he covers his feet in leaves. Now, as Grogu is kind of just going, kind of exploring around and like sort of looking, what to do, he finds the ship that we find out later is the ship that Rada was escaping on. So that ship has crashed, nearby. So the ship is there. And he also then finds basically I don't know what the key, he almost looked like a catfish, an anthropomorphic catfish. He was almost like a fisherman, I guess, guy, just like living out on the docks. He just had his own little dock, had his own little hut.
Is one of the characters from the Clone War.
From the Clone Wars, you think? Yeah, because he was just hanging out there, and he just had his fish. And the first night, Grogu just stole one fish from him and ate the fish. And the next night, the guy a frog eats Grogu, which is kind of ironic because Grogu eats a lot of frogs in the TV series. So this bigger frog eats Grogu, and then the fisherman guy, he uses this little slingshot, and he makes the frog release Grogu. And he realizes like, oh, you're the one who stole my fish the other night. And he's like, how have you not been eaten by the Hutts yet? He was like, you're like so small. And he's like, how's that happened? But then out of nowhere, Embo comes back with the dog wolf-like creature. He comes to just chat with the fisherman, and the fisherman's like, hide. So Grogu hides behind, some boxes basically. And you would think the wolf had a better sense of smell to realize it was Grogu.
But it was
and
right
not the
next
fish.
to the fish. So
yeah. So again, he's saved by the fact the fish is next to him. But I would say, in theory, that dog should have had a better sense of smell to realize that it was Grogu. But alas, I guess perhaps he's just for show and just for companionship. So we do not hear Embo speak. Again, you don't really hear Embo speak ever. So then he leaves, and the fisherman stands up and he says, like, oh, that guy there just said that he's looking for a captive. And he says that he fought a dragon snake. So he makes his like paste for the most part, like an antidote for the venom. And he makes his little paste and he says, like, it may be too late, but he's like, you should feed him this. So he gives the little paste to Grogu. Grogu hops back to Mando. Yeah, and when he feeds, he doesn't take his helmet off. Before too, he had some water that he fed Mando, but he just kind of like lifts the helmet just a little bit just to feed him, just through the bottom. And again, this magic paste does wonders, because the next day Mando is up and about, which I wish we could have seen him crawl out of that hut, because I can't imagine what that hut was. Like, the entrance of the hut was really just around his leg, so he would have had to literally crawl out of that hut, and Grogu slept through the whole thing, which is kind of shocking, honestly. But I wish we got to see him crawl out of the hut, but we don't. So Grogu comes out of the hut. He sees that Mando is, back to normal, and Mando tells him, the famous quote there says that the old take care of the young, and then the young will take care of the old. And that's what he says to him, because obviously Grogu is the one who nursed him back to health for the most part.
Saved his life.
Yeah, saved his life. So then Grogu shows him the ship again that Rada had crashed on. So they go to the ship, and they have to fight off a few more creatures inside the ship. The same creatures that were in the water initially. So the same dudes are in the ship, different ones, but same species. So when they're in the ship is like torn apart. Leaves are already grown on top of the ship. So the fact the ship even turned on was honestly more shocking to me than anything else. But he tells Grogu, he's like, all right, we have a choice now. Either we can leave, and he's like, we'll still be pursued by the Hutt twins because they're still going to be after us, or we can stand and we can fight. So obviously they're like, we're going to fight. So how that ship flies, no idea, but the ship somehow flies, and they get ready. It flew enough. Yeah, it flew enough. It is like smoke is coming out of the back as they're flying it, but ship flies just enough. They get ready for battle. They crash the ship into the palace, which I think is hilarious, honestly, because it's like, I don't know, I just love when you're just like, you know what, the ship isn't going to make it anyway, let's just crash it. They crash it into it, and then they're fighting off all the droids. As they're fighting off the droids as well too, there are, again, they fight off all the droids. They basically get to the very end. There was a scene too where they have these two massive droids, and Grogu literally crawls into the droid to like pull it apart from the inside, which I thought was really funny. But anyway, so they get into the main room, and then the twins at first were like, oh no, right? They're like worried. And then, Din has the famous line saying, you saw my face, so now you must die. But as soon as he goes to kill them, Embo comes back out of nowhere, and then him and Embo have this whole little fight scene. So then him and Embo fighting, he had already told Grogu to go release Rada, so now he releases Rada. The twins are not going after Rada, and then the wolf dog is going after Grogu. So everyone has their own person to battle in this scene. Everyone's fighting. It's honestly, I would say Rada and the twins fight was actually the most interesting, because I'd never seen creatures like that fight. So it was kind of fun to see the big slug-like creatures fighting. But anyway, though, so as Rada and the twins are fighting, I guess the twins don't have names. They're just only ever referred to as the twins. But as Rada and the twins are fighting, they're fighting on top of, I guess, the door. The door that like goes down to the water. That swamp. Yeah, so they're fighting on top of the door, so you can tell that the door is starting to creak, and it's like, oh, that door is not going to hold the weight of these three gigantic slug-like creatures. And so Grogu is able to defeat the wolf dog by using the Force. Basically, he's able to calm the wolf dog with the Force. Rada and the twins, and one of the twins even says, like, we're all going to die if you don't stop fighting us. And then in that moment, the trapdoor just breaks and they all fall through. In the same moment, again, Mando and Embo, they rhyme, I just realized. Mando and Embo, they're fighting, but he kind of pushes Embo kind of over to them in the same moment. And as soon as Embo starts to fall, the wolf dog snaps out of his trance, and he's like, oh, my owner. So he goes after him. So now they're all falling, all the bad guys are falling into the pit, and Rada. And then again, using the Force, Grogu is able to lift Rada out of the pit so he doesn't fall into the pit as well. But then Embo and his wolf dog are able to escape basically through that same, like where the explosion was, how Mando escaped when Grogu blew up that pipe. He's able to escape through the same pipe because he's small enough to fit through it. And then the dragon snake.
Hutts were asking him to save them.
Oh yes, yeah, you're right. So the Hutts were asking Embo to save them. What was he gonna do against that big dragon snake? I have no idea. But anyway, he's like, no, out of here. He leaves, and the dragon snake eats both of the twins. So the twins are gone. But the fight is not over. I feel like you gotta have multiple struggles in any Star Wars show. Everyone's always struggling at any given point because the droids are still all over this entire palace. And in that moment, as they're fighting fighting off the droids, Mando tells Rada and, Grogu, it's like, is there another way out of this room? So they leave through like a back door. He's still fighting off the droids. And in that moment, that's when he gets intercepted in his helmet by I guess it never said.
The Colonel.
It was by the little Anzellans message him first. And then the Colonel messages him. I forgot to mention this before. When they had removed his helmet and thrown him into the dragon snake pit, at one point they throw the helmet back in there to be like, oh, because you've been entertaining us. I feel like it was just kind of an easy cop out too, just so he gets the helmet back. But anyway, he had his helmet this whole time as well too. So again, he's only de-helmeted for like one scene for the most part. But anyway, with the helmet on, the Anzellans are able to contact him to say, it's like, oh yeah, we left in our ship and they got the New Republic. So now Sigourney Weaver, the Colonel, she's there. Again, a lot of the classic characters that are in X-Fighters, they're there as well too. And Mando says, you need to come in hot on my location right now. And she's like, are you sure? Because that's where you are. So we could kill you by accident type of thing. But he's like, no, because he's like, we'll escape before you guys get there. Big fight scene, both on the ground with Mando again fighting the droids, and in the air too with the X-Wing fighters, fighting as well, in the air against all the other ships. But for the most part, they get to the end, they blow up this last tunnel, and then they throw themselves into the water. And at first Rada's like, I don't know if that water's deep enough for me to fall into it, which I think is a very fair statement for him to make. But somehow it is, and he's fine. They're all fine, obviously. So then again, and then Zeb is there, and Zeb is the one who actually picks them up. And they go all the way back to, I guess, where the New Republic, I don't know, they don't say the planet that the New Republic was on. So whatever that planet is supposed to be, they all go back there. But
it was tropical.
Yeah, it was like a tropical planet. Yeah, there were like palm trees and stuff like that too. So then the Colonel, her name's Ward, Colonel Ward. So that's Sigourney Weaver's character, Colonel Ward. So Ward tells her that Janu and the twins were working together the whole time. So they thought the twins maybe would work with the New Republic, but the twins were never working in the New Republic. They're kind of like a spy on both sides, double agent. So they were feeding the Galactic Empire, the sympathizers for Galactic Empire stuff while, feeding the New Republic stuff. So whatever. So Janu and the twins are working together. So now they're all defeated. So then Mando says that he'll bring Rada wherever he'd like to go. And Rada's like, actually, I think maybe I'll stay here and try to maybe work with the New Republic. So he ends up staying. Zeb stays as well too. And then, Grogu and Mando go back in the Razor Crest, and you see Mando start to teach Grogu how to actually fly the ship. Because at this point, it probably is imperative that Grogu actually knows how to fly the ship. Because before, when he was giving him instructions, nothing has labels on it. So he's like, it's right next to this thing, which is next to this thing. And like every single button in here, nothing has a label. So how is Grogu even supposed to know this, even if he could read? I don't know if Grogu can read. We've never seen him read before, I suppose. But even if he could read, nothing has a label. So how is he supposed to know? So, all right, yeah, that is the main plot, I would say, of the overall movie. There's no end credit scene. So once the movie is done, I would say. But yeah, Dad, so what was your favorite scene of the movie?
I'd say my favorite scene was Grogu helping and saving the Mandalorian.
Yeah, I would say that scene was really fun too. It was fun too to see Grogu like meditating, again, tapping more into like his Jedi side. Because everyone says that at some point in the far future of Star Wars, that's where Grogu's character is going to be, is the bridge between the Mandalorians and the Jedi. Since historically those two people had never gotten along, so he's going to start to bridge that gap. But I like that scene too. It was really fun to see Grogu again, just like have more agency and action and kind of problem solve on his own. So I thought that was really fun. I really liked seeing actually their home on Navarro, because I thought that was really cool to finally see where they live, like their home base. Because in a sense, they're always traveling and they're always doing stuff. It's like when he went to that planet, or what was the planet? When he went to Shikari, again, he'd never been to Shikari before. So you see all these people just living life on Shikari, just like, just hanging out. And it's just wild because like, wow, he really does just get to travel the whole galaxy, doesn't he? How fun is that? Right? So just get traveling the galaxy.
But he needs a place to call home.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then he still has this little, because I'm saying is it must get so tiring to travel all the time. But it's like, no, but he does have the home base on Navarro, which I think is great, which again is from the show, from season 3, that, that they decided they were going to do that. But I'd say too, I also like the scene as well when he had told the Colonel, he's like, the last mission was pretty rough. So he's like, I'm going to take a break. And it's like, oh, that's good. I think it's important to recognize when you should take a break, right? It's good to take breaks, even though he didn't really get to take a break since he was immediately ambushed that night. So much for the break, as well as then too, I suppose the break was to work on the Razor Crest ship as well. So, all right. So I'm trying to see. So anything else you want to mention? Any other favorite characters from the show? I would say Mando. He's always a favorite character. I feel like him and
Mando
Grogu.
and Grogu.
I know, Grogu's so cute. It's hard not to like
their movie, and it was a pretty good story.
No, it was good. And again too, so I saw too that Jon Favreau had said that season 4 of The Mandalorian is not off the table. So they do have a script for season 4. I would say the movie's pretty standalone in the sense that everything that kind of happens in it is like, the missions contained, like it started and ended within the movie, which is pretty common for movies to have. I think the main thing is that he got the Razor Crest back, so he has a bigger ship rather than just the smaller ship that he had. So I feel like that's the main thing that when we get to season 4, that you will have to know.
And that was his payment for all the work he did. Yeah. That was his payment.
Yeah, so he got the ship back. And then just 2 other little fun facts I had here was that it says, then also the film had approximately 54 cast members, 3,500 background extras, and 500 crew members to help make that. And that was like filming on set, right? That's not even including the post-production people who did all the special effects afterwards. So again, a lot of people go into making these movies, which is always crazy and always really fun. But yeah, but again, I love the movie. I thought it was really fun. I would say The Mandalorian and Grogu, 2 of my favorite Star Wars characters in an overall general sense. I've always loved the TV show when it first came out. So it was really fun to see them on the big screen. And seeing the movie opening weekend, we don't know what the box office numbers are yet, but of course it is coming out Memorial Day weekend. It's assumed to be a big summer box office hit as well too. There were a lot of, I would say, families in the theater, but there were also a lot of just adults as well too. It was kind of a mix.
I'd say it was more adults.
Yeah, more adults than like families, but there were a lot of little kids, I would say, in it too. I would say, other than the fact it has some violence in it, I would say it's fine for a kid to see. It's nothing too crazy. If you've seen the other Star Wars stuff, it's nothing crazy from another Star Wars show or movie, or I would say overall. So again, there were a number of kids. But again, a lot of Star Wars people in the theater as well. I saw a lot of people wearing their Star Wars like Mandalorian shirts and stuff, and I had my Mandalorian shirt on as well too, because I was like, I gotta support. So, but then I didn't take my jacket off, so I'm like, what was the point of that? I guess it didn't really matter because I didn't take my jacket off because it's raining today. So, all right. So normally, again, sometimes we do some Disney news on the podcast, but for today, we're just gonna go straight to our Disney quote. So our Disney quote today is that a bench? That is said by the Mandalorian. This is in the Book of Boba Fett series. So there's that funny episode. I just love that quote because it was just so funny that sometimes he just says things. But yeah, I guess too, because you don't have the facial expressions of the character. But yeah, but in the Book of Boba Fett, when he's trying to get back to Grogu, he can't figure it out. And there was those droids that were building that whole thing, and they build him a little bench. And he's just like, is that a bench? Like, what is going on? Like, none of these people are listening to me, type of thing. But I love that quote. I always think that quote was really funny. But all right, and to end our podcast today, we will end on our Disney memory. Do you have a memory today for the podcast, Dad?
A new memory? I mean,
well, any memory
related to the movie?
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be related to the movie. It can be related to anything. So yeah, usually me and my mom, we reflect on like a Disney memory from like our time together or our time in the parks.
I just enjoy seeing the Disney movies and the Star Wars movies with you.
Yeah, for the most part, we've seen every Star Wars movie together since I was a kid. So yeah, for my Disney memory, I would say I was 9 years old when Revenge of the Sith came out, and we saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters together. Me, my dad, and my brother. And it's funny because arguably Revenge of the Sith is probably the most graphic out of all of the Star Wars movies. So it was fun to be like, wow, the 9-year-old got to go see Revenge of the Sith, and it is the most graphic just because of that scene on with the lava plane and stuff. But just because of that, it was just kind of funny. But yeah, but I remember seeing that in theaters, and that was like, I mean, like before then, I'd always liked Star Wars, but that was like the first spark to say, it's like, oh yeah, I really love Star Wars. Like this was really fun to see the movie in theaters. So it's fun that we still get movies in theaters, every couple of years to go back and to relive the Star Wars.
And we go together.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, thanks everyone for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. Let us know, what did you think of The Mandalorian and Grogu? Are you going to go see the movie as well too? Do you think that you're excited for season 4 of The Mandalorian, or do you think they should just continue to do a movie series based on The Mandalorian? What else do you think of the overall Star Wars series and the characters that they brought from the old TV shows, again, from Clone Wars and Rebels into The Mandalorian and Grogu? We'd love to know your thoughts. Make sure you give us a review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or leave a comment down below on YouTube. But until then, we'll see you real soon.